this doesn't feel like it was made by men in any way. It really feels like a film. Can you talk about how you just start anywhere, just how you connected and how this happened?
Well, for me, I really connected to the mother-daughter story aspect of this. I was raised by a single mother, and then I became a mother, so I find those narratives really connect with me, and also I can understand now, being a mom, just how hard it is to be a working mother, a creative working mother, and how so much of America is sort of not set up to support that. And I love the landscape of Las Vegas, and I've always been curious of what is it like to live there? How does the day-to-day of these people's lives function to sort of make this beautiful illusion kind of come to life? My cousin Matt Shire was like, well, my wife, Kate Gersten, also has an appreciation for Las Vegas, and she really spent time with the showgirls who are the icons of Las Vegas and yet don't have a show anymore to represent that. And you spent time with those women during their final years of the Jubilee.
Kate, did it start with you talking to the showgirls and getting to know them?
Yes, well, I had a funny little job while I was still in grad school for playwriting, where I was writing the patter between songs for this one-woman show in Vegas, and we were taking over the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night performances of Jubilee, which was at the time the last standing show of its kind on the Strip, and it was fascinating to me when I finally got to see the show, and I could tell that it wasn't really very long for this world, because it just felt very outdated, and I could see what was coming in, and our show represented something very different that was coming into their space even, and so I started talking to the dancers in our show and then the dancers in Jubilee, and then I spent a lot of time with Diane Palm, who was the company manager, who wound up being a consultant on our film, and this was back in 2013 when I started writing this. I wrote it as a play first for my when I was still in school, and then changed it into a movie.
And did you know Pamela, or how did you all meet?
No, I didn't know who could play the role of Shelley. No kind of actor came to mind. I would think of past actors, like Marilyn Monroe, and then I came across her documentary, and I was just really struck with how vulnerable and daring and just her sort of approach to life, but I could see this woman was very much an artist herself and a poet and just a very creative and kind of itching to express herself as a dramatic actress that, I mean, really there was no one else that could play Shelley other than Pamela. Just there were so many parallels.
You've been doing this for a long time, and I can't think of a single form that you haven't done. You've written.
Yeah.
Well, really.
Boot camp.
You've written books. It has been, you've done documentaries, you've done reality shows, you've done modeling, you did Playboy, you did dramatic films in the 90s. There's really, and you're about to do a cooking show for the Canadian.
I dabble in a lot of things, because you never know.
And in the meantime, you're a very outspoken social activist. Sometimes when the right issue comes along, and I don't know how you have found the time for even half the things you did, let alone all of them. So did you help shape this, or would you have thought of this if they hadn't come to you?
No, I mean, I was in the garden back in Canada. I kind of went home to really peel it all back and remember who I was, because I didn't want to be defined by all these things that had happened to me. I wanted to be defined by what I do and my capabilities. And I didn't really know what was going to happen next, but I had faith that something was percolating. I thought, I think I'm in the right business, but I haven't really had anything that I could really sink my teeth into or put into practice, things that I've learned along the way.
And I just come from a little tiny town on Vancouver Island. Nobody really is in this industry. I just always had this
And you have a farm
imagination.
there now?
I have a little vegetable farm there, and it's my sanctuary, which I love. But when I read this script, just all these bells started ringing in my head. I thought, oh, like I could hear the voice in my head. I could see it. It was so clear to me that I had to do this, that it was life or death. Everything in my life is life or death, kind of dramatic. But I was like, I have to do this. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is why I've even lived the life that I've had, because I know I can draw from everything for this role. And in a way, I felt it was a very healing thing for me to do, because I felt like I could finally put whatever that is inside me that needed to get out into something. So it just, like I said, it just feels like the beginning of my career. Even though I'm 57 years old, I feel like this is just the beginning, because I feel like
It's the beginning of this career for sure.
I don't know, like I always feel like vanity is a prison, and I feel like I've cracked the code, like I'm not a slave to it. I feel like I really love to transform, and this is what I needed at this time in my life, and it really was wonderful.
This film was made this year. It is not opening until next year. You're very lucky to see it now, but it's in awards contention for this year, so it will have a qualifying run. And remember it when you're telling people what to see. When we see the show finally close and we finally see it at its most beautiful, it just seems so heartbreaking. I think that's why I'm all choked up that it's closing, because they're expressing themselves in the way that they want to. They're really good at it. They've spent a long time, lots of time perfecting it, and it does still work in a way. I don't know what Las Vegas is like now, but I don't really understand why this is obsolete.
I think for me, when I was sort of diving into this world of showgirls, I was really struck by the level of artistry that really went into these shows. And I think part of why they don't exist is just because they're also quite expensive. Like, these sets used to be so big that they can't even get them out of the casino. In fact, some of them are actually still stuck in there because the only way you can get them out is to demolish them. And then the costumes are museum pieces. We were really fortunate enough to have the actual pieces that haven't left the building in 30 years. And, the level of...
Were there wings left over from something?
They were all
from Jubilee.
They were all from the Jubilee show. They hadn't left the building in 30 years.
Okay, wow.
So,
And when you're sewing on the wings, I think that's what you look like you can really sew on top of everything.
I haven't heard that yet, but thank you. I do sew a little bit. I'm a crafty girl.
You did really well. So anyhow, I didn't mean to interrupt.
well, yeah, I mean, and I was really struck by that level of artistry with those shows. But I think so much of the Las Vegas landscape, and what also sort of fascinates me is the kind of analog versus the digital, and how often our culture just kind of discards things as it kind of gets older, and I find like things just only get more interesting as it kind of gets older.
It's so interesting to see so many generations in this movie hitting the same crossroads and feeling those stories. I thought was really unique and attractive about the project.
I want to ask you about the casting of Billy Lord, because everybody's family history here is very complicated. And Billy Lord happens to have had a mother who didn't really have time for her very much. I never loved her then. And the mother-daughter disconnect, the fact that it's so heartbreaking, I just wonder did you talk about it beforehand? How did you do that?
Well, we met that day when we actually shot that scene.
Turn her away?
Yes. No, the scene where I'm in the backstage and
Okay.
and she comes and said, "Is this more important than me?"
Right.
And we did talk about that though, and especially afterwards when she said it felt really close to home because of her mom and her grandmother's relationship, that she was able to really express herself in this film about those really hard issues. So that was, heavy and interesting and really exciting. And that's why I think it was just these moments you feel that are palpable, because they come from experience and our life stories.
One of the many tightropes you have to walk here is between mothering the other showgirls and not being able to mother your real daughter. Can you talk a little bit about where that came from?
I think her sense of guilt, maybe, she obviously was easier to raise. Her natural instinct as a mother, a biological mother to one child, that she didn't, maybe make the right decision, so she probably overcompensated for her other kids. But plus, a showgirl family is a showgirl family. I mean, we create our families in our work, and even beyond biological relationships.
Do you think she's afraid of her daughters anger and just can't face it?
Well, I always say we are going to all face our adult children and beg for forgiveness. I've been there. But there's no perfect way to do it, so you might as well follow your dreams. It's so interesting to see so many generations in this movie hitting the same crossroads and feeling those stories. I thought was really unique and attractive about the project.
I want to ask you about the casting of Billy Lord, because everybody's family history here is very complicated, and Billy Lord happens to have had a mother who didn't really have time for her very much. I knew her mother then, and the mother-daughter disconnect, the fact that it's so heartbreaking. I just wonder if did you talk about it beforehand? How did you do that?
Well, we met that day when we actually shot that scene.
Turn her away?
Yes, no, the scene where I'm in the backstage and she comes and said, "Is this more important than me?"
Right.
And we did talk about that though, and especially afterwards when she said it felt really close to home because of her mom and her grandmother's relationship, that she was able to really express herself in this film about those really hard issues. So that was, heavy and interesting and really exciting. And that's why I think it was just these moments you feel that are palpable because they come from experience and our life stories.
One of the many tightropes you have to walk here is between mothering the other showgirls and not being able to mother your real daughter. Can you talk a little bit about where that came from?
I think her sense of guilt, maybe, she obviously was easier to raise. Her natural instinct as a mother, a biological mother to one child, that she didn't, maybe make the right decision, so she probably overcompensated for her other kids. But plus, a showgirl family is a showgirl family. I mean, we create our families in our work, and even beyond biological relationships.
Do you think she's afraid of her daughters anger and just can't face it?
Well, I always say we are going to all face our adult children and beg for forgiveness. I've been there. But there's no perfect way to do it, so you might as well follow your dreams.